Paul Joseph Watson, you've been covering this for a while. You did a video, I believe it was a week or two ago, Pedophiles Run the World. Boy, that seems to be even more important now that Epstein is dead than it was then when you put it out. But what do you make of Epstein's death, or do you think he's still alive? What do you think is going on, Paul Joseph Watson?
Well, that is one of the emerging conspiracy theories, quote, that's come out, that they actually swapped him out with somebody else, or that, you know, he's been transferred back to Pedo Island and everyone else gets off scot-free, and that was the deal that he did with them. As far as I've seen on that, it's just random posts on forums so far. What we do know, Owen, today, this came out today, top headline on InfoWars, Epstein's cellmate was transferred out day before suicide. So it turns out that he did actually have a cellmate who would have witnessed what happened to Epstein, but just by coincidence, less than 24 hours before his apparent suicide, this cellmate got transferred out. Of course, we know they claim they didn't have cameras within the jail cell itself, but they did have cameras trained on the outside on the doors, so they would have picked up whatever was happening if anyone was going in who was coming out. Rumors that those cameras mysteriously failed, so it's just faux pas on top of faux pas. Of course, the prison warden and the chief psychologist had signed off to confirm that Epstein was not suicidal. In the days before his death, prison insiders and other guards have come out and said that he was in, quote, good spirits. He had warned guards, and this is all in mainstream media reports, that others had tried to kill him, were planning to kill him. He told guards, he told prisoners. Now we learned from Fox News he was reportedly considering cooperating in naming names that had reduced his sentence. We actually had that report weeks ago where he was looking at a reduced 5-year sentence if he coughed up the names of some of these powerful men that are quoted in the documents that came out last week. And suddenly, he turns up dead. Of course, we have a media that has spun the biggest conspiracy theory of the past 2 decades, probably, in Russian collusion, now saying that talking about Epstein possibly having been killed as a result of a conspiracy is hate speech. They're now removing YouTube videos which talk about that, so maybe they'll remove mine later on today, even though it's got
which is, of course, the most 1984 thing you could ever imagine. I mean, that's right out of 1984, 2 + 2 = 5. But it's not even, that's even more complex. We're dealing with 1 + 1 = 3 right now. The official narrative says 1 + 1 = 3. I'm not even going to sit here and say who's responsible for it, because at this point I'm open-minded. It could be anything. Again, I could see how he cuts a deal and they basically do a body switch and say, oh, he's dead, put him in witness protection. I could also see he could easily have been killed. There are a lot of people very powerful that want him killed too. So I'm just sitting here saying, okay, the official narrative is 1 + 1 = 3. I know 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3, so I'm going to find out how this 1 + 1 actually equals 2. And don't you think this is a huge opportunity? I mean, nobody is buying this. I mean, no, the average person that's not even political isn't buying this. They're like, oh, okay. I mean, people need to see how the mainstream media is trying to cover up and how the real story here is much more interesting than, oh, financier commits suicide in jail. Yeah, and
as he said, once they get a lockdown on the narrative, it's going to disappear after a couple of days. Now we see the emerging narrative is that the staffing was inadequate. So we know he was taken off suicide watch a week after allegedly trying to commit suicide. But even if he was not on suicide watch, which is what they claim, as per their procedure in the jail, they have to check on him every 30 minutes. Now we found out it was hours before his death that nobody checked on him. Oh, but the staff are overworked and they're inadequate, so now they're throwing the jail guards under the bus, even though in this same correctional facility, this jail, they've had one suicide in 21 years, which was the death of a drug kingpin in 1998. They've had a bunch of other suicide attempts, but in every single other attempt...
it obviously wasn't suicide, unless he literally banged his head against the wall for 30 minutes until it was a pulp, which was not true, because we saw the pictures. There's no way this was suicide. So Paul, let me ask you this. I mean, let's really try to war game this out here. I mean, to me, I think there's only 3 potential options here, and that's that either he cut a deal with the Justice Department or the Trump administration or whoever, and he said, look, they're going to try to kill me. They obviously knew that's true, so he cut a deal, and they said, fine, we're going to do a dead man switch, pull you out of here, claim you're dead, put you in witness protection, and then you can cooperate with us during this investigation. 2, And this is the craziest one. I mean, how many people would have to be involved in actually killing Epstein for this to go off without anybody getting caught? I mean, you had to have people in the jail. You have to have people in the federal government. You have to have people just in the medical. I mean, literally, how many people would you have to get to cooperate to actually pull this off and either have him killed in jail or sneak him out of there to get him back to whatever? I mean, so which one do you think is more likely? To me, both are more likely than suicide.
I mean, there's another option that maybe they threatened to kill his family. I don't know how close he was to his family or how exposed they were, but maybe they threatened to kill his family and got to him that way and basically forced him into a Gary Webb type situation where, you know, he shot himself in the head, 2 or 3 times apparently. But just the basic facts of it, it's almost impossible to commit suicide. What did he hang himself with? You've had ex-inmates of that same correctional center in New York saying, literally the bed sheets are like paper. They're not strong enough to hold anything. They would just tear if anyone tried to hang themselves with the bed sheets. You know, he's had all the shoelaces, all the rope, whatever's in there removed. The floor and the ceiling is like 9 feet high. There's literally nothing to hang yourself on. There's no hook. There's no anything in there. And this is from people who have been in that prison for years who have come out and told this to the media. So just the basic mechanics of how he possibly did it, given all this, kind of overrides, incompetence, they didn't check on him. Even if no one was checking on him, how did he physically manage it when it's impossible according to the prisoners that were in there? So I don't know. A lot more is going to come out over the next few days. But as he said, they're going to put the lid on it. What they're still doing with Rubio and Joe Scarborough and these others is ludicrously claiming that Russian agents killed him to cover up for Trump and the Trump body count. What is the Trump body count in comparison to the Clinton body count? Trump was the only high-profile guy who distanced himself from Epstein the first time he found out about this alleged sex trafficking. Nobody else did. Trump helped the lawyers of the victims of Epstein. So the fact they're still trying to pin this on Trump,
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. I mean, I don't get it in my personal life here, but it's like I can't even imagine what Trump is going through. I mean, I triple check, quadruple think anybody I even talk to or get close to. I can't even imagine Donald Trump. So he's not hopping into bed with these minors because someone's from Epstein Island trying to get him over there. It's not even in his personal profile to ever do anything like that. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. Owen Schroyer, Paul Joseph Watson with you. Just what an epic time to be alive. You almost just want Black Sabbath to tell the story, don't you? You can't even summarize it properly with vernacular. You need music and horns and passion and just noise that communicates universally with humans. No language can you describe what's going on. But Paul Joseph Watson, look at this headline from the New York Times. You want to talk about irony? Epstein's suicide conspiracies show how our information system is poisoned, from Charlie Warzel, one of the biggest trash journalists out there, as you well know. But isn't this hilarious, Paul? The Epstein suicide shows how our information system is poisoned. Oh, not the lies about 9/11 to get us into war, not the lies about the Gulf of Tonkin, not the lies about weapons of mass destruction, not the lies about babies in incubators, not the lies about Russian collusion. Oh, no, it's people that question the Epstein suicide that don't believe 1 + 1 = 3 from Charlie Warzel at the New York Times. I mean, what a pathetic puke Charlie Warzel is. But again, the irony to say that our information system is poisoned because people question an official narrative that doesn't make sense when the New York Times spreads false information that leads us to war. Boy, you could cut that irony with a dull knife, Paul.
Well, we have to recall that the characterization of, quote, conspiracy theories as a dangerous assault, a fake news assault on reality, goes right back to George W. Bush, right after 9/11 and right before the invasion of Iraq, which, of course, as we mentioned many times, is the biggest, most harmful fake news narrative that was pushed by the New York Times above many others. The most harmful. It led to the invasion of Iraq. It led to the rise of ISIS. It led to the invasion of Libya, again based on a hoax to do with armed jihadists being peaceful revolutionary comrades that we had to go in there and support. the biggest, most harmful examples of fake news in terms of deaths, in terms of driving Christians out of entire countries and regions, in terms of the complete loss of faith in institutions in the West and in the United States, which, by the way, is leading the West towards a horrific civil war scenario that no one wants to see. But we are not responsible for that, for questioning Epstein or questioning any of the other of these highly questionable events when they literally launched the biggest fake news hoaxes, the most harmful, the most damaging. Whereas we were putting out articles like this weeks ago. Economist Jeffrey Epstein will be killed in jail. Another one, Epstein in danger of being murdered by powerful people before his trial, says victim's lawyer. And Coulter, move Epstein to a supermax prison before he is suicided. She made the point that there are people on death row in that New York correctional facility that will take a deal to be involved in a potential murder of Epstein. We predicted this. Numerous other prominent people predicted it. It happened exactly as predicted. Oh no, but we're dangerous simply because we got out ahead of the story. When again, they've been responsible for the most foundational, most harmful fake news stories in modern human history, yet they have the nerve to point the finger at us.
Well, this is like a weatherman, or like there's a huge storm, like a huge hurricane is building out, in the Atlantic Ocean. And so people are like, oh, hey, there's a huge hurricane that's about to hit the coast, in the Atlantic coast. We better flee. And then Charlie Warzel goes on the TV and says, there's no hurricane coming, nothing to see here. And then the hurricane literally comes through and just like levels multiple cities. And then Charlie Warzel goes out there and says, there was a slight windstorm, barely any wind, no rain at all. And everyone's like, what? There's a massive hurricane that just leveled 10 cities. What the hell is this guy talking about? I mean, okay, Charlie Warzel, 1 + 1 = 3, doesn't it, at the New York Times? I mean, it's just unbelievable. But Paul, do you agree that this window of opportunity to wake people up so that they can see mainstream media lies, they can see the cover-ups that are taking place, they can see the shadow government and the power it has? I mean, we're talking about, if Epstein was actually killed, we're talking about a shadow government here that has more power than a president, an attorney general, and an entire correctional facility combined.
We're talking about a global elite that literally is run by pedophiles. Epstein not even being at the apex of it. We have to remember, you mentioned a video, Pedophiles Rule the World, which I made actually in 2017, over 2 years ago now, going through literally every major pedo ring bust in every major European country, some in South America too. Every single time it leads back to the global political elite, to judges, to police chiefs, to people in the entertainment industry. The people they burn, people like Dutroux in Belgium, who got caught running a pedophile ring for the elite in Belgium. Every single time they burn the underling gets sent down or the underling gets killed. It's the same in every single country. So for to come to that realization, and the media plays these games where they're like, oh, Pizzagate disproves completely the fact that elites would be connected to pedophilia. No, they're connected to pedophilia in every single example, in every court case, in every country when any of this comes out. So it's about changing that narrative. It's about burning the underling. Epstein was the underling. Some speculation that he was working on behalf of a state actor as a blackmailing operation for them. So again, it's about burning the underlings. And just to get back to the nitty-gritty of it, they literally put him in a straitjacket. This is what they do in this prison. They put you in a straitjacket where you can barely even move. They put you in there with a steel bed that's fixed to the floor. There's no light fixture. There are no bars. There are no instruments of death. The guy who was in there with Epstein at the same time said they give you rubber pens because they fear you may hurt yourself with the pen. They literally have no instruments of death to carry out a suicide bid, which is why they've had only one successful one in 21 years. All the others were prevented. You've got the highest profile sex trafficker, billionaire pedo in there, the guy you want to watch the most, the guy who already allegedly tried to kill himself 3 weeks ago. They take all the surveillance off, they take all the guards off, and he suddenly winds out dead. And now the indictment, because it didn't name any individuals, which came out last week, protects those individuals from being named. There are a lot more documents to come, but it does now look like that those individuals will be protected. So of course we're going to ask questions of this without being finger wagged at and called extremists and called conspiracy theorists and literally put in the same bracket as terrorists and mass shooters, which is what the media is trying to do. You take Warzel, for example, Owen. He led the charge to deplatform InfoWars and others based on nebulous accusations of hate speech. Now they're taking it to the next level where they say, if you engage in fake news, if you circulate fake news, now you get deplatformed. Who decides what's fake news? The fake news media, who are responsible for the biggest, most harmful examples of fake news in modern human history. It's a good little game they've got going, isn't it?
Well, I mean, look, there's zero doubt. They did a stand-down order on Epstein. I don't know where the orders came from, but they obviously did a stand-down order. Now, you know, it's like, I wonder about a guy like Warzel. Doesn't it make you wonder about a guy like Warzel that tries to stand up and cover up mass pedophile networks? Doesn't it make you wonder about a Warzel?
Makes you wonder. And his friend over at CNN, Oliver Darcy, again, another loser who was basically kicked out of the conservative movement, then had his revenge, his resentment, by deplatforming of the conservatives. So, yeah,
I mean, come on, Warzel. What is Charlie Warzel so afraid of? Like, did Epstein have dirt on him or something? I mean, come on, Warzel. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3. 1 + 1 equals 2, Warzel. 1 + 1 does not equal 3. Why are you telling us it does?